Everybody's ready to go. My name's David Turry. I am the moderator for tonight. It's great to see so many concerned citizens to be out here in person. NCTV will be taping it and running it on the show, but it's not live. It's great to see that we have so many candidates running, and every position is contested. Not every candidate could make it tonight, and that's okay, and you shouldn't take that as they don't want the position, but they had conflicts that they couldn't change. So with that, here's how we're going to be going. We'll call up the first group. They'll get 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then about a minute and a half to answer the different questions that we have for them. We have a couple questions for each category, and nothing zingers, but just good town questions that we felt that the citizens would want to know. And I do want to give out a shout out to Melissa Mayo and Rob Garrity for organizing this, and then I volunteered to be the moderator. So looking forward to it. So with that, we have the assessors, and Debbie's not here. So we'll go on in Constable. Mark Flaherty is unopposed, so he's not here. Housing Authority, Betty Lehan is sick, is she? Correct? And Carol Green could not make it either. So with that, we're going to go to Recreation. Is Rob here, or?
The first one's going to be Board of Health.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So Board of Health candidates, please come up, bring up your name tags. It doesn't matter where you sit.
Oh, okay. We drew numbers. I didn't know if we had to sit 1, 2, 3 like we
No.
drew. Well, I'm sitting that way anyways.
Okay. First, I would like to turn off your telephones so we don't have any disruptions, please. All right, candidates. You'll have the 1 minute to introduce yourself, and then we'll start asking you some questions. So go ahead, Teresa, you start.
Hi, everyone. My name is Teresa Bernal. I am running for the 1-year Board of Health position. I have lived in town since 2019. My husband and I both grew up in Medfield. We raised our 2 children in Franklin. I'm very familiar with Norfolk and our wonderful town. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and to the committee for putting this together. And I apologize for speaking so fast, but I know that our time is short and everyone's time is valuable. Just a quick, brief overview of my experience. I have a Bachelor's of Science. I hold a ServSafe Manager certificate. I've worked for 23 years at Norwood Hospital, both inpatient and outpatient. And I worked there right up until they closed just this very past November. I own a food service small business right here in Norfolk. And I've served in the military for 12 years, so I do have a lot of leadership experience. And I have some experience running some large events and helping on boards such as Relay for Life.
Thank you. Next.
My name. Sure. My name is Josephine Kordahi.
Bring it closer.
Okay.
You have a soft voice.
My name is Josephine Kordahi. I've lived here since 2017. I lived for many years in Norwood. I went to St. Catherine's and then went into the public school system after that. I have a master's in nursing. I'm an advanced practice registered nurse. I also was a pharmacist in Montreal, graduated from McGill University. I speak French. I'm a francophone. I spent 7 years in Montreal, so I have an idea about the Canadian healthcare system, particularly in the province of Quebec. My family's from Lebanon. I also speak, the Lebanese dialect of Arabic. I've met many people throughout my career. My last position, I was the school nurse leader for one of the oldest nonprofits in the nation, the Home for Little Wanderers. And I worked there for 4 to 5 years until, sadly, I had to leave and exhaust my family medical leave of absences because my father's health was deteriorating. And my father, ultimately did pass away, and now I have my mother who has dementia and has now become one of the newest residents here in Norfolk and has moved in with us. I thought since I'll be, taking care of my mother, managing her care, and working part-time, that I'll be able to have some time to dedicate and give back to the town that, that gave to us with our students. I have my children in school here. I have my twin boys at the high school, at the KP High School, and I have my daughter here in the Norfolk Public School System.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for organizing this evening's event. This election should be about doing what's right for our town. It should be about diverse people with diverse points of view coming together with the best interest of our town. That's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Why am I running? I love our town. It's a great place to live. There's one traffic light in Norfolk. If you're from Boston, that's one great reason to come to Norfolk. Beyond that, we've met so many awesome people in town and made so many friends here in Norfolk. It's only natural to want to do right by your neighbors in the town that you live in. I feel I have something to offer. Data matters. Science and data matters. I value both. I have had health and safety responsibilities for the last 30 years. I was part of a team that kept a lab operational throughout the entire COVID pandemic. We did it and we kept the lab COVID-free. We also had some early treatment options in our lab, so we had extra pressure just to keep our lab safe and operational. What will I do? I'll work hard and I'll listen. I'll use science and data to make decisions. I'll rely on previous president to make decisions. Most importantly, safety first. Safety first while being fiscally responsible, because that's what our town needs today. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start off with the questions. John, you're number one. You picked the number one die. The Housing Authority Board, the Board of Health is responsible for a broad range of health categories, from water treatment to potluck meal policies. Do you have applicable experience on these topics? If not, how would you acquire them?
So as I said, 30 years in health and safety responsibilities. I've read more stuff from the Department of Public Health, from the CDC, obviously from OSHA. So if there's something to familiarize myself with, I will read it. I then will turn to the experts and ask for assistance where needed.
Thank you. Josephine?
Could you just repeat the question for me?
Yes. The Board of Health is responsible for a broad range of health categories, from wastewater treatment to potluck meal policies. Do you have applicable experience on these topics? If not, how do you acquire that knowledge needed to make informed decisions on these topics?
Okay, so I am also a supporter of evidence-based practice, but there's never a yes or no in healthcare. I'm assuming when you say potluck, you're talking about food handling? Or-
Yes.
Okay, so food handling, so because that's a
Non-packaged food.
non-packaged food handling. I am aware of how viruses and illness and infections can spread. That is a component that I would use in any sort of decision-making. Whatever I don't know, I would definitely consult with my colleagues and other people that have more experience with, food handling. As far as the water, I guess did you say the water?
Water from wastewater treatment, just showing you the range.
Okay, so I don't I'm usually, so I don't have a lot of knowledge about water, waste, and treatment, but like nurses and doctors, we're usually on the other side of that issue. We'll have people that come in with, cholera, certain infections that are waterborne. That's something that I would probably have to read up on, but I would definitely know how to protect our residents, and would consult the appropriate authorities to be able to do so.
Teresa?
One of the wonderful things about our Board of Health is that they have a wide range of people that are on it right now. And one of the really interesting and great things about my background is I have a very eclectic background of my experience in education. I have actually own a food service business myself, and I am manager Serve Safe certified, so I would definitely know all of the ins and outs of anything food related. I've also worked in healthcare for 23 years. Although water treatment isn't directly related to healthcare in any way, you know, being able to understand lab tests and understand something like that is something I definitely think that I could learn. I would lean on my colleagues, obviously. And my wonderful husband is in the construction business, so he told me that he would help me with anything septic related, so I know that that is definitely not my strongest suit, but I have a really great support system. I'm eager to learn. I have a great education, and I really feel that I could learn from my colleagues and learn.
Okay. Starting with you, Teresa. What's the most important function of the Board of Health?
Well, you know, Norfolk's really unique. We have a lot of really unique things that are happening in our town right now. That's a really, really difficult question. The answer is actually everything. You know, everything that happens in our town keeps our community safe, whether it's our restaurants and giving them the support and guidance that they need to make sure that our community is safe, whether it's you know, things that are happening in Southwood and keeping the community updated on that, whether it's environmental issues that are new to our region and things that we're working about, whether it's things that are new and old at the same time, such as Norwood Hospital and being an important part of making sure that that hospital gets rebuilt. I know several people that's on the board to rebuild and save Norwood Hospital. I worked with some of those doctors and they're colleagues of mine, and that's something that's really important to this community. But I can't say that it's the most important because frankly, there's just there's a lot of fingers that the Board of Health has in a lot of extremely important areas. I find that my unique background can give some great guidance in those areas, and frankly, it's all important.
Thank you. Teresa, Josephine.
Yes, hi. That's a multifaceted question. I also had some experience on the Board of Health with some property that my parents own in Norwood. It's very multifaceted, the Board of Health. We are looking at, you know, potential landlord and tenant issues, food service business, schools, keeping everybody safe in the schools. As a school nurse leader, we had implemented guidelines, you know, attended DPH meetings, we're on these, you know, there's a lot of things. And we also have, New York, Norfolk is also, I agree with Teresa, very unique. We have the elderly population here in Norfolk. We have families that want to live close together, family that lives together. I think that, I think we would have to focus probably on the populations initially that are at the most at risk, like the elderly, or places where, like, you know, there are a lot of people, like the schools. You need to keep an eye on that, and also the, you know, the food service industry, like businesses in town. Hopefully, they'll be having more come to town. But I do know that it wears many hats on the Board of Health, and at the end of the day, we work for the people. We work for you. We work for the people of Norfolk. I've had experiences that are not necessarily positive with Board of Health, where they were working exclusively for a tenant or exclusively for a client, and that's not something that I would do. We work for everyone here in Norfolk.
Thank you. John?
So a couple points. I agree with many of the things that have been said. Most of us are on septic, so how do we educate on how do we maintain our septic systems? We have a lot of residents who have never been on septic before. Something goes wrong with septic, that's a huge price tag to pay. So obviously we regulate septic systems and maintenance and installation. So let's do something there, and in that spirit, save our taxpayers, save the residents of Norfolk some money. We enforce standards. Not only should we enforce standards, but we also should educate people on standards. Earlier, I referenced keeping a lab open throughout the entire COVID pandemic. We had to keep the lab open. 5 cars, I could count on my hand the number of cars that I'd see between my home and hitting 495, every morning I was driving to work, okay? We kept our lab safe by educating our staff around what they needed to do for themselves and their family. Do the same thing here in Norfolk. Pull our town together. Teresa and I talked earlier about what are we going to do together? Because one of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose, okay? But we both committed to saying, Kingsbury Pond, that's a big issue, okay? It's a big issue. And everyone in this room should be concerned about that, okay? Frankly, I think Teresa and I will probably join together and we'll march on Franklin Town Hall, okay? And we will make some noise, okay? Because that is an environmental issue, and we got to fix that. Access to health care. Teresa, it is a shame that the hospital was shut down. It's a shame it was shut down. I had to take my husband to the emergency room last week. We went up to Needham. 27 minutes to get there. Okay, 27 minutes seemed like 27 hours. Okay, so that's something that's got to be fixed. Finally, we got to bring government to the people. Okay, I think it's awesome we have so many people here. Okay, but frankly, this should be a start. This should be the place where government hangs out. Okay, when we have a farmer's market, that's where government should hang out. Okay, bring government to the people and make government work for the residents of Norfolk. Thank you.
Okay, John, we'll start with you again. Do you see any public health safety issues in town that the Board of Health should be involved with?
Well, Kingsbury Pond, right there, okay? I mean, it's dry. It's so sad that it's dry, okay? That's something that everyone in this room should be fired up about, number one. I'm going to say what's happening in the world around us is concerning me right now. We need to commit to using science and data to make decisions around public health. People's health is too important. Okay, so I think the role of folks in the Board of Health is going to become increasingly important in the coming years. I don't care what party's in office, by the way. We got to watch what's going on in the world around us, and we got to respond appropriately to keep the residents of our town safe.
Thank you. Teresa? Do you want me to repeat it? Oh.
Sure, go ahead. Sorry, we had numbers,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm out of order.
No, you're fine.
No, Josephine, I meant Josephine.
Oh, that's fine, I'm happy to answer. if you
No,
want.
Josephine.
Okay. I just want to remind
keep order
everybody
here.
that I'm not competing against these two beautiful individuals, that I'm running for the 3-year term, and I'm running unopposed, and I actually came to introduce myself to all of you. So, what do I think? I think that the elderly population are probably the most at risk. We have children, also, I mean, I'm not, new children in town that may, not have had either. They used to have the teeth cleaning program and all these other things, haven't had screenings. I'm also thinking about some of the new development and the new establishments, what they're going to be like, if they're going to either serve food or provide a service, and then what that means to us and how it affects us. Which I'm totally, pro-business. It's just that we just have to adjust based on whatever issue is coming. I also am thinking that the Board of Health should offer services. We should be proactive rather than be reactive. We could partner with the elderly center in town, the Council on Aging, to see, who needs a blood pressure checked, who needs a screening, who needs this, who needs that, versus exactly, what
Okay.
you were saying too. Bring it to you.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. I believe everybody's talked about your work experience and skills, so I'm going to skip that question. So last question. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Teresa.
This should be the last question for this group.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Would you repeat the question again, because now I've lost it.
Do you see any public health safety issues in town for the Board of Health
Absolutely.
that we should be involved in?
Absolutely. You know what, I will say that our Board of Health in Norfolk, that I actually work with each and every single year when I get my permits for my business, I think that our Board of Health does an excellent job in our town. They really do. They do a spectacular job. I actually deal with 11 boards of health in 10 other different towns, and I can tell you that Norfolk does a spectacular job. With that being said, I mean, we can always improve in our lives everywhere, can't we all? I'd like to see Norfolk be more involved with the Southwood property. I know that there is, the EPA is involved in there, but I'd like to see us be a little bit clearer with what's going on there. I'd like a little bit more communication to be out to the residents in this town. I think everybody would like to know exactly what's going on there. There's a lot that's going on in that site. Kingsbury Pond is definitely something that needs to be looked at I know that there's a bill that's going through the House right now, so hopefully there'll be some work with that. But our Board of Health does a really good job. I think that I can bring some different insight into it and really bring some value to that. But they do a great job,
Okay.
and I'd like to help them with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. All right, our next group is the library trustees. Would those candidates please come? Do you have your name tags? Yep, okay. All right, thank you for coming. Melissa, you'll be number 1, and Ken, number 2. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Bruzy. I've been a Norfolk resident for 12 years. I have 3 kids, 10, 7, and 21 months. I work a full-time job in quality assurance at a CMO nearby. So I figured I'd have enough time in my day to also volunteer for this library trustee position. I feel like it's an important position. I'm trying to be more involved in the community, especially with younger kids. I've brought them here for a few events, and they really enjoy coming here. We've rented a few items from the library, specifically the metal detector, so that was a lot of fun at home. You know, anything that we can do as a family, it's fun. And I feel like the library is a great community resource for families and, you know, anyone looking to do research for work or school, or, you know, if you want to learn a new hobby, there's resources available for everybody. I feel like I could bring some ideas to enhance, you know, the offerings here.
Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for coming out, everybody. My name's Ken Nelson. I live at 12 Medway Street, and my wife and I have lived there for 35 years. We raised our children in Norfolk. They live with their families now in Franklin and Medway, respectively. As far as my education goes, I have a bachelor's in history from BC, a master's in criminal justice from Southern Illinois University, and an associate's in nursing from La Brea College. My background is in public safety. I worked for the Department of Correction for 35 years in line, supervisory, and leadership positions at 7 prisons and in headquarters. Shortly before retiring from the DOC, I went back to school, got my nursing degree, my RN license, and for the last 14 years, I've worked for a company that provides health care in county jails in Massachusetts. We provide medical, mental health, and opioid treatment services to inmates.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes.
Okay. You've got about a few seconds. I'm sorry.
I've been a trustee for 33 years. I love this library. I've loved libraries as a kid. While I've been on the board of library trustees, we've grown the library, the physical plan of the library, and now I'm done.
Thank you. And I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay, back to Melissa. What do I want to say? The sales program is at risk of losing federal funding. If this should happen, how will it impact our library? And what do you propose as a solution to mitigate that risk?
So I would work with the other trustees. You know, a part of the job is to do some fundraising events and managing the funds that are available. So I would, you know, work with them and, you know, get an understanding of what the necessary funds are for the library, what they need, and what we can do to help.
Okay, thank you. And I think that concludes our questions for... Oh, I'm sorry. This is my first time doing this. I apologize.
They said this was going to be fair, and I'm beginning to wonder about that. So.
And you're the incumbent.
Yeah, and I'm an incumbent. Yeah, so, you know, we're entering some very difficult financial times, I think. I think FY27 for the town is going to be particularly difficult. The library is primarily supported through tax dollars that are raised in the community. However, there have been, well, not cuts, federal funding essentially has been eliminated. The Trump administration shut down the Institute for Museum and Library Services. So as a result of that, funding for the Commonwealth Catalog, the platform which allows people to, or libraries to exchange e-books, that funding has been lost. The Board of Library Commissioners has pledged to continue that funding at least through the end of this fiscal year. But, you know, we're really entering uncharted territory going forward. And, you know, I think Melissa's right. I mean, I think we need to, you know, it's hard to go back to the town and ask for more money because all town departments are in difficult shape. We have to be fiscally prudent, and we have to be good stewards of the resources that we have. Thankfully, we have an excellent friends group who's provided support to us over the years. In fact, this past fiscal year, they gave us $26,000 for things like museum passes, equipment, et cetera. My time's up.
Thank you.
Yes, question number one you have.
Yes. Are there any changes that you believe should be made to the library's existing policies or public program offerings? And I think you're...
Yeah. So we review all of our policies on an annual basis. We have a calendar where we review the policies and we make changes to them. We review a certain number of policies each month, and we make changes to them as we go along. One of the policies that is continually being changed is the meeting room use policy. Because just when we think we have it all figured out, we realize we didn't have it all figured out. So we revise that policy fairly frequently. What was the rest of the question?
Just any changes in the existing
No,
policies
but
or public program offerings?
Well, just one thing more about policies. I want to talk about our collection development policy for a second. One of the things that's happening across the country is libraries are under attack, and there are people that want to take books off the shelves of libraries. In our collection development policy, what we state is that we support the Freedom to Read statement from the American Library Association, as well as the Library Bill of Rights. And while I think that every adult has the right to determine what they should read or what their children should read, I don't think that decision should be made by them for other adults or for those adults' children.
Thank you.
So as a newcomer to this, I would have to review the policies and what specifically you're referring to, but I was made aware of a situation that happened recently where I won't, I'll keep it family friendly, but there was a misuse of technology at the library, and it was inappropriate, and the parents went to, I believe the director, and they stated that there was nothing they could do about it. And I absolutely believe there needs to be something in place to make the technology available more restrictive as far as, quote-unquote adult settings that should not be accessible at a public library. It should be, a family-friendly environment. So if that's the type of policy that you're referring to, that's something I would be looking to implement and
Okay.
change.
That statement that you just made, Melissa, is factually incorrect. The director did
Well,
take it.
it's not a debate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck in the election. Okay, the moderator. Okay, this is the town moderator position. Jay, you pick number 1, so you can start off with your introduction.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great to see such a big crowd here. Thanks to Rob, to Dave, to Melissa for putting this all together. I moved here in 1995. I raised both my kids here. By trade, I'm a municipal lawyer. I represent about 40 towns as town council. I've represented more than a third of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth during the last 30 years. I've trained hundreds of moderators. I attend about 50, 60 town meetings a year. I've been your moderator since 2014. Prior to that, I served on 7 or 8 other boards, including the Council on Aging for 9 years and the Conservation Commission. I was drawn to be the moderator because I wanted to lend my experience to the town. I wanted to serve in a non-policy manner, and frankly, I've enjoyed it all this time. I think that it's important that the moderator understand the rules, the laws, and the procedures. And I think it's important for the moderator to respect the time and effort for everyone that attends and to make sure that their questions are answered, that they have an opportunity to present the opinions that they have, to have fair and equal debate on all sides of the issues, but also to get the job done, because it's an important event that has an important purpose. Thank you.
Okay, going back to you, Jay.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, man. Jack. Hey. Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jack Oliveri. I am running for town moderator. In terms of my background, Paula, my wife, for 51 years, are natives of Massachusetts. We have lived in Norfolk here for 41 years. We chose Norfolk because of the quaint and charming atmosphere of the town. We raised both of our children here, Heather and Jay, who went through the Norfolk and KP school system. As far as my education goes, I have a BA in mathematics from Boston College, an MS in systems engineering. I've served as a captain in the U.S. Army Chemical Corps. I was a systems engineer who worked at the MITRE Corporation in Hanscom Air Force Base on space radars. My wife Paula was a kindergarten teacher at the HOD school for 25 years. We're both retired now. My involvement in town has been as a chairman of the Sludge Committee in the 1990s, which we helped overturn that decision, the chairman of the Economic Development Committee for a while, and I've recently been involved in identifying costs for the recent school expansion project. I'm running for town moderator because I believe town meeting is the oldest and purest form of participatory democracy in the United States. I have strongly held the view that each and every resident should have their voices heard and respected. My goal will be to increase town meeting participation and the efficiency of the town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. In Massachusetts, the town moderator's primary role is to preside over town meetings, ensure order, following established procedures outlined in the Massachusetts General Law, town bylaws, and parliamentary handbooks. In addition, the town moderator appoints the town advisory committee members. Given that town bylaws can be amended by a town meeting vote, are there any town meeting bylaw changes that you would propose, and if so, why? And the first question goes to you, Jay.
I think it goes to Jack.
Jack?
Oh, okay. I have to look at the overall bylaws. I think there are some that could be grouped together and seem to come up every time that people are really not that interested in, such as looking at different articles that for unpaid bills, or looking at bylaws that could be expanded in some areas. But I'd have to look at any particular bylaw to definitively say.
Thank you. Jake?
So personally, I think there's a whole host of bylaws in towns, and I write bylaws for a living every day. And I think there's a lot of different ways to put bylaws out there that would serve the town of Norfolk. But as the town moderator, I don't take a position on any bylaws with the possible exception of bylaws that might affect town meeting. And so with respect to town meeting, we worked on these a few years ago, and I helped the then moderator, Dan Winslow, craft the bylaws that we have right now. There's always room for improvement. I'm pretty satisfied with where they are now. The other thing that's evolving, in addition to the bylaws, is the procedures that we follow through the bylaws, which require following a book called Town Meeting Time. I wrote that book, the most recent edition with 4 other authors. So I think our change comes somewhat through those procedures.
Okay, thank you. The town moderator appoints the advisory committee members. What skills or experience do you believe is critical to be a member of the advisory?
So the advisory board makes recommendations to town meeting, and under our bylaws makes the first motion. I've been appointing for the last 13 years members of the advisory board. I've never really focused on what their personal beliefs are. Rather, I focused on, have they shown some expertise with respect to numbers, with respect to different needs of the town, and are they willing to make recommendations with respect to the long-term investment in this community? I've appointed people looking back on it from all over the political spectrum. I don't really check where they are. I think right now it's the most diverse advisory board that we've had in years, and I'm proud of it.
Thank you.
So I would echo some of what Jay said. I think I would point a diverse group with different viewpoints. I think certainly several members ought to be familiar with finance and budgets, because a lot of that, a lot of the articles have to do with that. Also, I think that the committee ought to have, or the advisory board ought to be able to back up their positions and explain individually or as a group why they did or they did not vote for a particular article. And I'd like to see that happen more often. In other words, if the advisory board recommendation is one thing, but it's not unanimous, it's a 4-5 or 6-3 decision, I'd like to hear both the pro version and the con version of why the advisory board voted that way.
Thank you. Okay, the final question, and Jack, I believe you're first up. Our good friend, social media. There have been social media posts that have been perceived to be politically partisan in nature involving Norfolk. How will you ensure all voices are heard at town meeting?
Well, that's a good question. You have to, I've done some outreach and determined that through an informal poll that people want to be heard. Their voices want to be heard and they want to be respected. However, on the other side, the flip side of that, they don't want town meeting to go on forever. So it's a balancing act. 60% of the people in the town think that the ideal time for town meeting length is 1.5 hours. Okay? That's pretty tough to achieve. So I think what you have to do is allow people to talk, and if it goes over, you may have to extend the town meeting, either that night or another session. But it's a balancing act. But people have been adamant, they want their voices to be heard, they want to be respected. Now, that doesn't mean they can go off topic either. They should stay on the topic. And the rules of order say that everybody can participate before a person gets up for a second time. So that's the procedure I do. It's not an easy decision to make.
Thank you. And those are our questions for tonight.
Well, I think I get to answer that.
Oh, yeah, by the time I get to the select board, I'll have it down.
So when I became moderator, we had red and green mics for pro and con, and it pretty quickly divided the room up, and I thought that was unfortunate. So I did away with that. We're really governed by the rules around town meeting, and I'm governed by those rules as well as a sense as to the investment that people want to put in something. So I will let anyone get up to the mic and speak. If things get a little repetitive, I might move a debate along. I certainly respect a call of the question or a motion to cut off debate when it's timely. Sometimes people make that motion too early. And as I say at the beginning of town meeting, I'll reject that motion if I still feel the voices of town meeting need to be heard. If I see people lined up at the mic, whether they're pro or con, I might ask for the contrary view. I think it's important to have all sides of that. That said, when it gets repetitive or when people stray from the scope of the article, it's my job as moderator to refocus us and make sure we can get the business done in a single evening, and I've never failed to get the business done in a single evening.
Thank you. That's it for the questions for the moderator. We appreciate you coming out. Okay, thank you for coming. First, we have the introductions, and that'll begin with Ben, then Gary, and then Dan.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. My name is Ben Sprague. My wife and I have lived in the town since December of 2020. I have 2 young boys that go to the schools here. I love this town, and that's why we chose to move here. Within my first 9 months living here, I joined the Norfolk Lions Club to give back to the community. I wanted to give to a town that I thought could give something great to my family. Professionally, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. Right now, I am a director of facilities of real estate. I'm a director of facilities and real estate for a company in Franklin. I've also worked for MassDOT and New Hampshire DOT on complex infrastructure and development projects. So I have the hands-on experience to know about roads and developing and zoning and planning boards. Right now, really, honestly, my top priority running in this is to get the Park Street Bridge fixed. I think it impacts everybody in this town, and I think there's ways we can do that using the MBTA Community Act to push the MBTA to fix that bridge that they own. So that's really what I'm running on. I will be a thorn in their side to make sure they fix that bridge on a timeline. I've worked for MassDOT, so I know how long projects can drag out, and I think there are ways for us to use Mass General Law Chapter 40 and 40A to get that bridge fixed faster than it normally would.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Gary?
Thanks. My name's Gary Sullivan. I moved here with my wife and my 2 kids in 2014. I live off of Park Street, so if you can get the bridge fixed, that would be awesome, because I'm a little separated from everybody else in town. But yeah, so I'm a software engineer by trade. I work in the city, so I commute using the train, which is great. That's one of the reasons we chose Norfolk. Since 2017, I've been involved in town work, first through Cultural Council, and then through Town Government Study Committee, and then after badgering the Select Board on standing up an Economic Development Committee, they kind of shifted me or nudged me to, hey, why don't you join the B1 Zoning Board, because they needed some help at the time. So we did that work. That was pretty successful from a bylaw change standpoint. Then I became associate member of the Planning Board. So this all started in 2015, and then I was voted in 3 years ago as planning board member. So I would like to rerun for that. We have a lot of things that we've worked on in the last 3 years that I think have been fairly beneficial to the town. And there is a lot of stuff on the docket that I would like to see to completion.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the organizers and thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. My name's Dan Seeger. I live on King Philip Trail with my wife and 2 little boys. I've got 15 years of public and private sector development experience. I spent 12 years working in different senior environmental roles in state government, most recently as Undersecretary for Environment for Governor Charlie Baker. In that role, I was responsible for managing the state's 4 environmental agencies, so issues from roads to bridges to water and sewer. I spent several years as a consultant working for commercial developers on site plan review and planning boards. So I was responsible for being the conduit between the developer and the planning boards and the local government. I think that Norfolk right now is sort of a town at a crossroads between growth and between maintaining its character. And I think with the right people at the table, both of those things are possible. I think that a lot of great work has been done by the planning board to put in a position to implement the master plan. And I think with my 15 years of public and private sector experience, I can put that to work for you all to do that in a community-driven way.
Okay. Ben, you're number 1, so you get the first question. The planning board, as part of the master plan steering committee for the town of Norfolk, just finished up the master plan for 2035 this past year and published it. The results and recommendations is a result of the extensive community input process. Of the priorities identified, which ones interest you the most that you would like to work on to bring to fruition?
Well, I definitely think looking at bringing businesses into town, we definitely lack commercial space. I know part of the master plan is revitalizing the center of town. I'd like to see if there's ways that we can use the empty lots of land we have to get some commercial space in there. I know the owners of the properties have been wanting to make sure residentials hold those spaces, and it has been hard to find commercial spaces in it, but I think if we think outside the box, maybe look to local smaller businesses instead of reaching out to bigger conglomerates like Stop and Shop or Brothers Markets, but I believe there's actually some grocers in the state that we could possibly convince to come into town so they're not stepping on their own toes. And then working with the property owners to reducing the amount of residential properties they actually want to fill these pieces of land.
Thank you. Gary?
Yeah, so for the master plan, which again had over 1,100 residents, contribute to that, which is awesome. And I think everybody on the planning board and part of that steering committee learned a lot. A couple of things that stand out that are already underway, right? The first is more commercial in our C1 district, or the commercial district area down off of 1A, and we, per last town meeting, we have rezoned C6 to be ready for Southwood Hospital redevelopment, and hopefully GFI Partners keeps making headway there, remediates the toxic waste, or remediates the issues on site, and then is able to build up that commercial building space for us, so we can generate tax revenue from that. Second, like Ben just said, it's all about it's all about downtown, and right now the biggest impediment there is wastewater management. So I know the town is currently working on solutions and pathways to have wastewater management, so we might see those empty parcels in the center of town built out. And then, the number one thing, it's almost like a drinking game. It's like, where's the grocery store, right? Like there's a bit in the master plan that I really pushed on and would not shut up about, and it's probably the best solution to get a grocer in town is through some sort of co-op model, right? Where the town is invested in its own grocery solution. And so if there's extra tax revenue coming from commercial district and we have infrastructure in place, here from wastewater management in downtown, we might be able to push somebody or some group of people to make that investment to get something like a small-scale grocery store in the center of town.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think similarly to what these guys have said, I think one of the most important things coming out of the master plan is to find ways to drive commercial development in town. Over 95% of the tax base in town comes from your residential property taxes. And that means that every time, something gets more expensive or the town grows, that goes directly on the residents. And quite frankly, I think that's unsustainable. And so I think utilizing the master plan as a tool to grow responsible commercial development is one of the most important things that the planning board can do. I've worked with developers, I've worked as a developer. I know that commercial development is a complex puzzle. It's gives and takes, and it's finding solutions to tough problems. Whether it's the wastewater, accessibility to a site, or it's the zoning, or it's the foot traffic. Figuring out responsible commercial development is really about rolling up your sleeves, diving in, solving problems, and working with the community. And I think that's the most important thing that the planning board can do, and something that I can help be a part of.
Thank you. Okay, Dan, you're up. What are your top concerns as it relates to the land use planning of the town that you hope to address in your role on the planning board, and how do you propose to address them?
I think my top concern in the town is managing responsible growth. I mean, I've got an environmental background. I'm sort of a true land conservationist at heart, and I think that we need to find ways to grow commercially. We need to find ways to grow responsibly from a housing and residential perspective, but we can't just keep cutting down new lots. We can't clear cut new lots for apartments, McMansions, what have you. And so I think that making sure that we're finding that balance between open space, preservation, accessibility, and the commercial and residential growth that we need and are going to face as a town is one of the most important things in my mind.
Thank you. Garrett?
Yeah, I'm going to echo some of what Dan said, but take a different approach and say that open space preservation is pretty important. I sit on CPC as planning board member for that purpose to reach those, or to help reach those goals. Additionally, keeping the the agrarian ethos of Norfolk healthy, right? Like there are plenty of ways that we can start to work to help save our farmland that might be in jeopardy. Some of that comes through, we weren't able to get to it this year because so many other things ended up on the docket to talk about for planned meeting, but eventually we'd like to get to a town-based, farm bylaw or farm by right bylaw, which is already provided by the state of Massachusetts, but we can make extra provisions specific to Norfolk through a bylaw like that. And then, keeping the aesthetic of Norfolk the way it is without needlessly allowing development that takes away from that is something that I think is achievable long-term by the planning board, and that's what one of my goals is.
Thank you.
I think I can echo a lot of things what both of them said. Land use is an interesting thing in Norfolk. We have lots of older residents that have been here for a long time that love to see the town stay like it's always been and what they remember it, and then we have new people moving in that want to see a little bit of growth. So I think it's an interesting balancing act. I think the zoning board's put in an interesting position when it comes to land use because we are held to some regulations that the state puts forth on how we have to use this land. So I think there's a fine balance of showing the state that we as a town have the ability to control our own town and not let the state just kind of roll over and do exactly what they're going to say. My plan would be to really stand up to the state and show them that we are our town and we're going to do what our decisions are as a town, and the state shouldn't really be able to force us to do things. Just to make sure we have local control and it's not just pushed up by the state.
Okay. Ben, you be the first one for the last question.
All right.
We often hear the residents want to keep the small-town character of Norfolk, as you all mentioned, and believe the planning board should say no to dense residential development. 40B, which is Massachusetts state law and not governed by the planning board, excluding the state mandated developments that bypass the town zoning bylaws. What other ideas do you have to maintain the small character of the town within the scope of the planning board?
Well, I think that's a really tricky question, at least for me. I'm not a financial genius, so I think it's going to be a really difficult thing that I would have to work with the team, probably work with other boards in the town to understand how we can financially afford to keep the town small and keep the small charm feel without, overpopulating lots of areas or bringing things in. I think it would be an interesting thing, and I have to do a little bit more research on how we could work as a town to do that. I wouldn't have an answer right now exactly for how I would handle it, though.
Okay.
Yep, so my answer on that would be focus in targeting areas that make sense for those sorts of developments. Keep in mind, our bylaws don't allow for super dense residential building. even with the MBTA overlay. It's not as dense as a lot of people think when they look at Walpole or Norwood and see some of those buildings go up. That said, I think the downtown area would be a targeted spot for a 2.5, 3-story building to go up with commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. We were thinking about, or we were kind of hoping that possibly the Southwood property would be some sort of high-density residential that would help us meet our affordable goals. That's now going to be light industrial, which serves a great purpose in bringing in extra commercial tax revenue. So we have to find other areas that allow that. Again, we don't have any jurisdiction over 40B. ZBA has some push on that, but Planning Board can just kind of give thoughts and opinions on the project. So what we need to do is continue to work with developers, right? We can't say no, we can't stop growth. That's not possible in the state of Massachusetts, but we can work with the developers to get to some version of yes that Norfolk is comfortable with.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say growing up in Norwood, I always loved Norfolk for its rural, quiet, small town atmosphere, and that's why I chose to move here and chose to raise my family here. So I want to see that stay in place. I agree with Gary. I think the way to do that is to make sure that you're working with developers to make sure that they can successfully develop their projects in a way that maintains that small town character and atmosphere. I think when you work with them and you understand what they need to succeed in that project, and you can come to agreement and negotiation of doing it in a way that works for the town. When you don't work with them, when you just say, we're not doing any growth, we're not going to work with developers, they will find a way to make money. They will go the 40B route. They will, ram a project down your throat, and that's not what I want, and that's not what we need as a town. So I think working collaboratively with developers, implementing the master plan is the key to keeping Norfolk the small town that it is now.
Thank you. With that, that's all the questions we have for you. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you for coming tonight. Birch, you'll be... The first question is, do you believe the school... Oh, introduce yourself.
Thank you.
We all know who you are, but go ahead.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah. My name's Birch Duggins-Worf. I've lived here in town with my family since 2021, so for almost 5 years now. I have 3 kids that are all school-aged, from age 5, going into kindergarten next year, all the way up to 6th grade going in next year. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a librarian. I worked in public libraries for about 10 years. The last 2 of those I worked in the city of Virginia Beach in the director's office, and my job was to get information and data about a city's 500,000 residents and our 10 library branches, and make recommendations to our director on how we could best serve the community using data-driven decision-making. Now I work for an investment firm, and my job is to support the economic research and financial people. So I give them whatever information they want. So my real passion in life is just finding information for people and giving it to them in bite-sized, easy-to-digest ways. So I guess good schools affect all of us, whether or not we have kids in school. We know that strong schools make strong communities. All of our citizens have demonstrated their commitment to good schools because of the allotment of tax dollars to the education of children, which is the largest portion of the tax budget. And I believe that this role as a school committee member requires the utmost degree of diligence with our spending choices. And as a professional experienced in finding and synthesizing information, I believe I'm well positioned to approach these issues with thoroughness and rigor.
Thank you. Lisa?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming here tonight. I think these face-to-face conversations are really important, so I appreciate it. I'm Lisa Sheldon. I'm running for re-election to the Norfolk School Committee because I believe every child in our town deserves access to an excellent education in a supportive environment, and I really want to continue reinforcing that effort. My husband Jeff and I moved to Norfolk in 2016. We have 2 boys in the district, Ryan, who is in 4th grade, and Nate, who is in 2nd grade, so this will be our family's last year at HOD. I have a bachelor's from Boston College in English and Communications and an MBA from Boston University. I currently work in investor relations. As both a mom and a current school committee member serving as chair this past year, I'm deeply committed to our school's success. Over the past 3 years, I've worked to bring a thoughtful, collaborative, and student-centered approach to this role. I've helped strengthen connections between the schools and the wider community. I've served on the budget subcommittees in challenging years and been a strong advocate for increased state aid, as well as a voice for many families in this community. Looking ahead, I want to continue that work, but I'm also focused on academic achievement, curriculum transparency, addressing our space constraints, and stronger communication with families and residents. I believe we can support our educators, respect our taxpayers, and ensure that Norfolk schools continue to thrive and serve the needs of our growing student population. It has been such an honor to serve the past 3 years, and I'd be grateful for the opportunity to continue.
Okay. All right. The first question for Birch. Curriculum. What do you believe the school committee's role as it pertains to the oversight of the school curricula? And what are your thoughts on the current curriculum?
Great. So I think that the role of the school committee in that regard is pretty much outlined in Massachusetts state law. So their job is to hear the overview of the curriculum and either give a yes or a no. I think that the most curriculum decisions are probably best left to people who have an education in education. But that said, I think that it's good to do due diligence, make sure that all the curriculum that we have is evidence-based and rigorous. So what's the second part of the question?
What are your thoughts on the current one?
Yeah, so we've been going through some curriculum overhaul the past few years. So this year we got a new English language arts curriculum, which I think is really great. It teaches reading and stuff from a really more evidence-based method than our previous curriculum. And we're going to be implementing a new math curriculum in the coming years, which I think is sorely needed, as we've seen through some of our recent test scores. So the school is doing some good work getting everything in place.
Thank you. Lisa?
So the school committee is tasked with voting yes or no on the curriculum, and that is something I take extremely seriously. Whenever I vote, it is my responsibility to be able to defend that vote to anyone who questions. I don't ever want to be in a position where someone says, "Why did you vote that in?" and my answer be, because they just presented that and I said yes. I don't want to rubber stamp, because my role is to really represent the community. And I do think that we have such skilled educators in this town and skilled administration. I do also view parents as experts on their children, and they should be able to weigh in on their children's education, and that their views are important. Anyone who has a child with special needs knows that during those meetings, the parent is an integral part of that child's team, because parents know their kids the best. But it shouldn't be this adversarial relationship where who has the power, the parent or the teacher. It should be a partnership, because they all want the same thing. Everyone wants our students to succeed. As far as our current curriculum, I think the rollout of the ELA curriculum has been really thoughtful this year, and I'm excited because I would really like to see those scores improve. We've had such a great curriculum committee who really dedicated so much work to selecting that curriculum, and I've heard good things so far. I'm excited to see what they're going to propose for the new math curriculum. I would love it if they actually gave tools to parents to help, because the way they do math now is not the way I learned to do math. So I'm looking forward to that and really reviewing it, and just committing to everyone that I will do that with diligence and make an informed vote.
Thank you. Okay, the biggie. With over 50% of the school budget towards salaries, how do you propose keeping the school budget down because of the impact on the town? Lisa?
So when it comes to budget, my priority is always protecting the teaching corps and really keeping those positions at the heart of everything we do. The teachers are the boots on the ground. They're the ones with our kids every day. Those are the most important positions in the school. I think right now the most important thing we can do in regards to our budget is advocate for more funding from the state. And I have done that. I've reached out to both our state representatives. I've reached out to Senator Roush as well as Representative Vaughn and said, we need more funding. This is not cutting it. Please help us. And a lot of schools in the Commonwealth are feeling the same thing. This is a story in a lot of suburban school districts where the Chapter 70 formula, which dictates state aid, is just not keeping up with the expenses. So I think the advocacy there is really where we can make a difference. At our last school committee meeting, I introduced a resolution to the school committee that supported a proposal put together by the Massachusetts Association of Superintendents, the Massachusetts Teachers Association, and other organizations that really stress the need to address Chapter 70 special education reimbursement, regional transportation, and the school committee voted to adopt the resolution in support of that. So I think when it comes to our budget, schools need to be funded. We need to be advocating that our children have a good education. I think the way we do that, we need to alleviate the burden on the taxpayers by advocating for more state funding.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Can I answer the question?
Yes, you may. I was just going to get to you.
Yeah. So I agree.
The B right there.
Yeah. Obviously, the cut in Chapter 70 funding has been very difficult for the school. That said, I am worried that we're not going to get as much reinstated. Obviously, it would be great if we did, but I think we need to try to figure out some solutions on our own, just in case. I think that we need to spend smarter, maybe think about streamlining things, how do we consolidate things. I think we need to kind of approach it from a multifaceted way, where we're listening to the school administrator saying what we need, we're listening to the teachers saying what we need, we're listening to the parents saying what we need, what do the community members think we need, what are the other schools in the Commonwealth doing that are similar to ours, and is there some like expert research in the field that we can be utilizing to make some of our decisions about all kinds of things. So I really want to make it a more collaborative, put all of our heads together. We have a lot of smart people in this town that aren't on the school committee that we need your engagement to help figure out these difficult problems.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you lead off with the final question. What are your plans to handle the estimated increase in student enrollment?
I think a lot of the same things that I was just saying, we got to figure that out. Obviously, we have a lot of students, and it's just getting bigger and bigger every year. I do want to take a look at all of expert research about class sizes, talk to teachers about what the impacts of that are, talk to parents about what impacts they're feeling from that, and try to figure some things out. I've heard a lot of ideas as I kind of talk to people about this, and I do think that in our community we have people that have some great thoughts, and if we can just kind of get that together, and maybe we can come up with some new solution that we haven't found yet.
Okay. Lisa?
I think when we look at the schools, if anyone who has toured HOD, they know the schools, that those kids in there, it's busting at the seams. We've converted classroom spaces, we've converted the music room, just trying to fill classrooms, and we're at the point now where there's no one else to convert, and a solution has to be done. But when I think about the ballot initiative, that vote failed, and the message was loud and clear that it was way too expensive, and the building expansion as presented was not something the town was ready to do at this time. And I think people went a little to each end and said, if you're for kids, you have to vote for this building expansion. And they said, if you vote for this, you don't care if people lose their homes because they can't pay their taxes. And I think most people were actually in the middle. People care about education. They also care about affordability. One of the things the school committee did recently was submitted an application to the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts Building Association, in the hopes that they can provide significant funding for a future school expansion. We've applied 4 times before, and they haven't accepted us. This time, to strengthen our application packet, I reached out to Representative Vaughn and Senator Roush and asked them if they would write letters of recommendation for us. They did. We've included that in the application packet. I also wrote a letter of support, and so I'm hoping we get good news from them this summer. If we don't, we need to go back to the drawing board on how we're going to address some of these space constraints. And I think looking at ways that we can just creatively use space, but it's an important issue. I think everyone on the school committee has brought this up as a real problem that needs to be fixed, but we also know that we've asked the town to fund so many capital projects, and we really need to be sensitive and empathetic to people who have seen their tax bills just skyrocket. But I think working creatively and collaboratively across boards in town and across different, like from the planning board into the select board and just people who aren't even on boards, just expanding the reach of a committee to really look into this problem to see if we can fix it, because it definitely is a real one.
Thank you. And with that, thank you very much for coming tonight. Okay, I believe that leaves us with the select board. Okay, first we'll have the introductions, and then we'll get into the questions. Talise, you're the number one.
Thais.
I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight to hear from all of us, and thanks to everyone that's running. I think it's really important that we have town engagement and participation in our town. So appreciate you all for being engaged. My name is Thais Hickman. I've lived in Norfolk for 7 years. My husband Ken and I have 2 boys, London and Lincoln, who are 10 and 4, and both are in the Norfolk Public Schools. London is in 4th grade and Lincoln is in preschool at HOD. My education background, I have a bachelor's in biology. I have a master's of science and PhD in pharmacology from New York University and an MBA from Northeastern. I have conducted biomedical research early on in my career at Boston Children's, and then I transitioned to the healthcare sector as the VP of Analytics for a mental health and substance use healthcare company. I then transitioned to academia, so I currently work at Brown University, where I lead an academic consortium of elite institutions and help undergraduate students pursue PhD degrees. I'm also adjunct faculty in biology at Brown. I'm running for select board because I believe in a stronger, smarter, and more sustainable future for our town. As I mentioned, my career has been defined by leadership, innovation, and advocacy, and I'm ready to bring that same passion and experience to the town of Norfolk. My background is in research, data analytics, and science.
Okay.
And so I'm a numbers person, and I hope to be able to manage the town budget a little bit more wisely.
Thank you. Al?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alan Finney. I've been living in the town for the past 8 years. I have been working for the town as an employee for the DPW, operating and running the water system in the town for the last 18 years, and I was a subcontractor 5 years prior to that, working in treatment in the town. I have a D3 water distribution license, a T2 treatment license, a CDL hydraulics license. I have a grade 6 industrial municipal wastewater license, and a backflow cross-connection surveyor's license. For the most part, I've worked in the town. I do a lot for the water system. I've also spoke to a lot of residents in town. I deal with residents on a day-to-day basis. I travel through the town all day long, going to different locations, and I discuss a lot with residents that are over 60 years old. I do final reads, and right now I'm finding, final reads, I'm talking to a lot of people that are 60 years old and older. And right now, I just think that I could do more for the town. I'm on the Conservation Commission for the past 6 years, and I am on the CPC committee for the past 3 years.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you very much for doing this. Thanks, David, for volunteering. My name is Jim Lehan. I've lived in town for 40 years. My wife and I, Betty, moved here back in the 80s. I have 4 children, 7 grandchildren who live here in Norfolk. 2 of my daughters live here, and all of them have attended the Norfolk schools. In my career, my degrees are in mathematics and finance. I went to work out of college for Aetna Financial Services, spent my entire career there, 35 years. Last 10 years running the investment division. When I retired, my passion, my avocation, outside of those that know me, which is really hockey, is to give public service. And I decided to do whatever time and talent I had to try and give it back to the town. I have served on the Board of Selectmen for 18 years. Some may say that's too long. That'll be up to you guys to decide. I've been on the Recreation Board for 3 years. I've been on the Norfolk School Committee for 6 years. I'm one of the founders of the Affordable Housing Trust. I am on the the King Philip School Committee and still serving on the King Philip School Committee. Public service really is my passion. My wife and I, who she is also active, she's ill and couldn't be here this evening. My wife and I truly love this town, and whatever time and talent I have, I've tried to give it back to the town. I will be very honest. I very much debated whether I wanted to do this again. This last year has been the most difficult year of the 18 years I've been on this board. It has taken an enormous amount of time. It's taken an enormous amount of work. You all know about the visitors we had down the street. I have been on a Zoom call with the state of Massachusetts every single week, every Thursday at 9 a.m. for one entire year, not to mention all of the other things. It has been a tough, tough year. And that's one of the reasons why I debated. But Jim? I also know finance is my background.
Jim?
Okay.
Time's up, sorry.
I know better than to look at you, Rob, so that's all I didn't know.
Okay.
I'll stop.
Rather than try to stop you, Jim.
Okay.
It's okay.
First question, Ms. Hickman. The Select Board is the executive board of the town of Norfolk. You're responsible for the town operations, appointing department heads, oversee budgeting and financial management, developing and implementing town policies, amongst other responsibilities. Within the scope of the Select Board responsibilities, do you believe there are areas of improvement, and what would you do to address them?
Yes, I believe there's,
Am I first?
I believe you called my name.
No, because she's...
I was third. So do I go
Yes,
first?
for introductions, but not questions.
I'll go last if you want. I don't care.
It's up to you, David, already.
Whatever you want, Coach.
Go ahead.
There are
To
always...
your seniority.
There are, well, I'm the over 60. There are clearly always opportunities for improvement. No matter how good we are, no matter how talented we are, we can always do better. We, in addition to my mentioning how hard this last year was, we do financial forecasting. A lot of people think the Board of Selectmen have a lot of power. Believe me, it's a myth. We are responsible for 20% of the budget that you see at town meeting. 20%. That's it. That's all under our control. That's DPW, town hall, library, 20%. That's how much we get to say. 60% is schools and 20% is fixed income, fixed expenses, such as health insurance, liability coverages, tri-county, Norfolk retirement. We don't get a vote in any of those. Those are imposed costs. The portion of the budget that you'll see coming from the Board of Selectmen that we have full control over is a 2.5% increase. And it's been consistently in the 2 to 2.5% increase every year. So I believe we are very fiscally responsible in the part that we have control over. But there's always room for improvement. Next year, as bad as this year was, I will tell you our forecasting says next year is going to be worse. The biggest issue we're going to face next year is the fiscal considerations. I am very aware that we have a very large tax burden on our taxpayers here. We are the highest residential tax-based town in the North Attleboro area. We cannot continue to put that burden on taxpayers. So we're going to have to make some dramatic changes. That can't just be done by the Board of Selectmen. That has to be done by all the departments working together to make cuts. We cut 19 positions out of King Philip last year because we had to bring it down to a fiscally responsible budget. Horrible, horrible decision to have to make. I hated it, but we had no choice. We're going to have to make those kinds of choices this year. That's the reason I decided to run again. I have a fiscal background. I'm conservative by nature. In the business I came from, if you weren't conservative, you were unemployed in 3 weeks. And I think my experience and having some of the knowledge of what's going on here will be helpful in helping us get through it, because it's going to be a couple of tough years.
Okay.
And I don't want to see that burden
Thank you,
pass to
Jim.
the taxpayers.
Thank you. Please, out of the corner of your eye, look at the cards Rob has. Al?
Well, me working in the town, like I said, the past 8 years, and I'm sorry, 18 years, I have the opportunity to drive around town quite a bit doing my job. And working with snow plowing, sanding events, I see a lot of money that is being spent, and it should be overseen more by management, and it's poorly spent. So there are savings that can be done in several different department heads. I know that they asked for a 2.5% increase in department heads, and we have them coming through with 4%, 4.1%. We need to cut back. The residents of this town cannot have another tax increase. We do not want, and I don't approve, I'm not going to go for any kind of override. So where do we go from here? The schools are a tough subject. And I've just got involved with the finances in the town and find out where we're at, and it's not a good thing. And Jim knows that, and he just pretty much said everything that I would say. The next couple of years are going to be tough, and I'm jumping into something that it's like, you know, I'm jumping in the pond without any waders, with waders on. We need to not increase taxes. We can't do anything about what they are now, but we've got to do something to maintain where we're at and have a flat budget. And that's where my goal is, to try and oversee things and cut back on spending. Just for instance, our salt budget this year is $207,000 over budget. Some people have the attitude with, oh, just put it on the streets. I know the residents here like to see black water running on with snow, but we need to cut back on those kind of items.
Thank you. Ms. Hickman?
Sure. So, in short, yes, there's always room for improvement, no matter what you're doing. And we've heard a lot about the town budget, which is problematic. I also serve on the Town Advisory Board, which is essentially the Ways and Means Committee for the town, and we hear from every department, and they present their budget, and they present the cuts that are potentially coming down the pike, which you will all hear about at town meeting. We are running a $1.1 million deficit this year, and as you heard, we're facing similar challenges next year. However, there are also other things that the Select Board is responsible for, specifically communication and engagement. And I think that's an area where we have a lot of room for improvement as a town. The information that comes at all of us at town meeting is overwhelming, and we're asked to vote on these massive budget items without much context or input. So as a select board member, one of the things I want to do is encourage more community engagement by having town forums, office hours, places where folks can actually come and express their concerns so that we can make informed decisions as a community about the cuts or, you know, budget issues that are coming down the pike. So that's first and foremost top of mind. With regards to the budget, you know, I have a background, as I mentioned, in managing large multi-million-dollar budgets, both as the vice president of analytics for a major healthcare company, as well as in higher education. So I know how to do that. And I think the key there is starting early, and again, getting input from our town residents. I think that's where we start. We know we're going to have to make hard decisions, but I think if people are engaged and aware of what the cuts are that are coming, and we can come together as a community to decide what's important to us, I think that's where we start.
Thank you. So the first question comes to you, or the next question. The Select Board is a board of volunteers. It requires a significant amount of time and attention to balance all the priorities. The budget, working with the department heads and town administrator, while also balancing input and feedback from the residents. How much time are you able to contribute to this role on a weekly basis? And how would you gather that input from the community and town employees?
Sure. So when I choose to do something, I put my full, weight behind it. I do a lot of things. People ask me, when do you sleep? The answer is, I don't sleep much. I've started my own nonprofit, New England Equity Collective, which helps folks who need access to affordable housing and home ownership, working families, veterans, and disabilities. I've served on the Norfolk CPAC since I've moved to this town for 7 years. I serve on the board of Autism Care Partners. I serve on the board of the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress. I have led multi-million-dollar departments and teams. So, I do not take this lightly. If I am elected to this position, I will put, all of my effort and time behind making Norfolk a better place and making the town work for everyone.
Thank you. Al?
Well, I've been putting time in with the CPC committee. I've been putting time in with the Conservation Commission. The last month and a half, I've been spending time going to or actually last 4 months, going to the select board meetings. I've been going uptown and talking with the finance director. I live in town. My biggest challenge will be, to be honest with you, I work for the town. So from 7 o'clock in the morning until 3, I am working at the DPW, and I can't be out doing select board stuff at that time, but there is from 3 o'clock until bedtime to do that. I want to put into this town as much as I can. I like this town. I love this town. It's a good town. And I grew up and was born in Attleboro, and it's a huge city compared to what we have here. And I enjoy working here, and I'd like to do more. So if obviously I was to be elected, I would have to drop the Conservation Commission and the CPC committee, which I do enjoy working with Dave and with the CPC committee, but those things will have to go wayside so I can focus on more important things with the town budget especially.
Thank you. Jim?
I think I have an advantage over my two partners because I'm unemployed. Better known as retired, but not much difference sometimes. It's the type of job that it's as much time as you want to put in, to be honest with you. I put in a lot because I have the ability to do that. Some people don't. Doesn't mean they can't do the job. So I don't want to pretend that hours make you effective. It helps, but it's not the win. I put in average probably 25 hours a week working on Board of Selectmen, Select Board issues. 7 hours today on interviews. It's just part of the deal, but I have the time. And so I don't want that to be the issue that people decide yea or nay, because I think everybody at this table wants to devote their time to make it work. This particular last year was a tough one. And I know that the issues we face, as I say, I'm a finance guy by nature, are going to be difficult issues. I agree with the comment that this has to be a collaborative effort. We only control, as I mentioned earlier, a small portion of this budget. So we have got to work with the other departments, specifically schools, to find more fiscally responsible ways to manage these dollars, because I agree with Al. I do not support an override. And I don't want to see the town get in a position where you're seeing in other towns where they're forced to do an override, or the results of not getting that are really dramatic. And you've seen it in Franklin, you've seen it in Millis and some of our surrounding communities. I want to prevent that from happening here. And I'll work very diligently to try and make sure that doesn't.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will be, how will you communicate with all the town employees?
Me? I talk with all the department heads all the time, but I do it in a non-interfering way. It's important for the board to know where their boundaries are, and I think that's true with all the boards. The department heads do not report to the select board. They report to the town administrator. And you don't want to get in the way of that relationship. In the same vein, I visit with the police chief, the department, all the department heads on a regular basis, just so I know what's going on in a non-interfering basis. They all know me, and they know I'm not there to judge their performance or do any of that. That's not my role. And you have to be very careful not to cross that line, or you really impede your town administrator. One thing I didn't mention, and I want to mention that's going to add to our challenge next year, is our town administrator is leaving. He has accepted a position in Bridgewater. He's done an outstanding job for us for the last 3 years, but we're going to be looking for a new town administrator. So with all of the other issues we have to deal with, that's now on the table as well. So it's going to be an interesting year, to say the least. But you do need to be informed. And again, because I'm unemployed, I'm annoying people around town all the time, and it does give me an opportunity to know how people feel. Just as a parting comment, everyone says they love this town, and I believe that. I think everybody in this room that's volunteering, and I say volunteering, we're not politicians. We're citizens. We're just volunteering our time and talents, whatever it's worth, to try and make the town a better place. Nothing more, nothing less. We're not politicians.
Okay, Al?
I deal with everybody in town on a day-to-day basis. A lot of town residents I deal with every day. We have, water leaks in town that I have to, I'm the guy knocking on their door and they're like, what are you doing here? Because they're concerned I'm gonna tell them they have a water leak and they're gonna spend $3,000 to $5,000 to fix it. As far as the town employees, I deal with all the fire, police on a day-to-day basis. They're usually coming down to the DPW to get things fixed, or they have to talk to the vehicle maintenance, the police, fire. I'm up at town hall. I seem to go up to town hall for 2 minutes to do something up in town hall, and I'm there for an hour. Going to each department and talking, and they see me, hey, Al, can you? But as Jim says, I also have to have my boundaries. I've got some guys at the DPW, hey, I hope you get in. They're not gonna get any special treatment because I get in. I have a job to do at work, and I have a job to do for the town. And it's not to be specific to the DPW and, oh yeah, I'll get you this or I'll do that. That's not the way I operate. So that being said, I just plan on doing my best to do what I can for the town of Norfolk and the budget, taxes, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Ms. Hickman?
Sure. I think, building strong relationships with town departments are important, very important, especially as it relates to fiscal responsibility. I would hope to visit the departments, talk with the necessary folks, not just during budget season, but throughout the fiscal year, so that we can really have an eye on what is happening and what the needs are. The other thing I would say is communicating with the town employees as well as the residents. I think we need to digitize and come up with some modern technological solutions for how we communicate as a town. Just as an example, this election, I don't see any communication coming out from the town other than the blinking lights in the Rotary pre-election. It would be nice to get a mailer or a newsletter or something other than Facebook, which not everyone uses in town. And same goes with communicating with the folks that work at the town. What types of technology that can we use? For instance, for crisis and emergencies. The water got shut off not too long ago, and there was no communication that went out to those folks that were impacted by that because of, they were fixing plumbing. That, to me, is unacceptable, and I think that the residents of this town need to be informed, and we need to come into the current digital age and come up with some creative solutions for how we communicate both with the departments in this town as well as the residents.
Okay.
And that's what I hope to bring.
Catch your breath, because you get the next question. With over 20 boards and committees in town, it's a challenge to stay up to date on the various topics that are covered in the board and committee meetings. It is simply not feasible for all the residents to attend or watch the recordings of each. Meeting notes don't generally provide enough context to provide a complete understanding of each topic covered in the meetings. How do you propose keeping the residents informed from town hall on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I just talked a little bit about this, but we need to use technology. There's AI tools out there that will synthesize hours-long meetings into succinct paragraphs where folks can actually read and tune in. I watched the conservation meeting that John presented at not too long ago. It was a 2.5-hour meeting. I watched the things that I needed to watch, but I didn't have time to watch that entire meeting. So I completely understand that. And I think, again, we need to lean into technology, come up with a town newsletter or something. I hear that we used to have one. I'm not sure what happened to it. It's before my time. But one of the things I would hope to do is really, like I said, digitize the way that we communicate with our residents, get information out there so that people can consume all of this great work that's happening across all of these various boards in a succinct manner.
Thank you. Al?
It's a good question. You know, we talk about mailers and sending mailers out. Again, our budget is maxed out, so where do you get money to pay to have these mailers made and then mail them out? You know, I am not one that's on Facebook, to be honest with you. 25% of our residents in this town are over 60 years old. They're not on Facebook either. That seems to be a lot of where a lot of publication goes, you know, people find things out on Facebook. The community page is a place that you can go to here, and you can read a lot on the community page. But to, as Thais said, we had a 2.5-hour meeting with Conservation Commission. It's tough to put that out there unless the people come out and they sit. The public are welcome to come to the meetings and sit and listen. That's the only thing I can say would be the best bet. But again, if you're over 65 and retired, you know, getting out at 7:30 at night and staying up until 10 o'clock, 10:30 to watch a meeting, it's pretty tough.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
again, that's a tough thing.
Well, I'm over 65 and retired, but I'm still able to get up anyway. Let me rephrase that. I am still able to stay up past 7:30 at night. We have done a pretty good job of trying to improve our communications, and there's always room for more. We did have a town newsletter that went out. It stopped in January because our assistant town administrator was the one that was in charge of that and publishing that, and she took a job in Worcester. And we have not had the opportunity to replace that position. So yes, it did stop in January. We tried very hard to keep the webpage up to date, and certainly around the shelter. Anything that's occurred and everything that's occurred, we've tried to make that immediately available. We do use 911. When the bridge closed on Park Street, we learned about that on a Friday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, that they were closing it at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. So we had 2 days' notice. We immediately got that on a 911 because it's a heavily traveled road. We're not perfect. We tried the best we can to get information out as fast as we can. I've held office hours. I've had office hours available every Wednesday in the town hall. For the last 2 months, I've had one visitor, one. So, you know, I'm around town. I talk to people all the time. I have answered every phone call and every email I've ever gotten in 18 years. I've never missed one that I'm aware of. I think that's part of the job. So I'll do everything I can. I'm willing to go to anyone's home. I was at a home last night. I will do whatever I can to help people understand the issues that we're trying to work with here. I'm far from perfect. I'm an imperfect human being, but I will do my very best.
Thank you. With that, the town budget generally allocates about 65% of their budget to our local school district annually. Year after year, the district has faced budget reductions due to the rising schools at minimum by maintaining current funding levels of 65%, plus seeking ways to help the school district close funding gaps via the cost share opportunities or other creative solutions. What are you committed to?
I'm not sure I understood the question, David.
Are you committed to,
I feel better.
Are you committed to supporting the schools at a minimum by maintaining our current funding level of 65%?
Well, don't confuse the 65%. Let's put that aside. The Norfolk budget and the King Philip budget are not the same. They're not even made up the same. The King Philip budget, King Philip is a town unto itself. So they have to pay for all costs associated with that school. They have to pay for all their insurance. They have to pay for all their health insurance. All of the costs that are associated with running a town are in the King Philip budget. That is not true of the Norfolk Elementary budget. The Norfolk Elementary budget does not pay for any of their health insurance, does not pay for any of their liability coverages or any of the retirement. That's all in the town budget. That's part of our fixed costs. So you can't compare one budget with the other. So you can't look at this as a 65% and say, what do we do? Each has their own issues, and you have to deal with them differently. A lot of people don't know that or understand they're not made up the same. They're very different. If you look at King Philip, which is a 4.1% budget this year, and you compare that to the Norfolk Elementary School, which is a 4.3 budget, and schools aren't the same. Elementary needs and high school needs are very different. The equivalent budget, taking out the expenses that KP pays for that Norfolk does not pay for, King Philip's budget would be 2.2%. So there are significant differences between the schools. We cannot sustain 4, 5, or 6% budget increases under the current fiscal environment. We can't sustain them. They're not sustainable, which means we have to find better and more creative ways to manage our problems. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of people working together. You know, if we aren't willing to look for solutions, we'll never find them. And that's a bridge that's going to be hard to cross. People are very sensitive. I've got 7 grandkids going to school here. People are very sensitive about schools. There's nothing more sensitive to people than their children. And having served on school committees, I'm right there. I got it. But we have to do it in a more fiscally responsible manner. And it's going to make some tough decisions. 17 people from KP last year was a hard, hard decision. But we
Okay.
had to make it.
Thank you, Jim. Al?
I'm 65 and I'm getting tired. That's a hard thing to follow. Jim just hit most of the marks that I would hit. Yes, the 65% is high, and to ask the school to cut that back when we have enrollment increase, it's tough to do. So the answer to that, if Jim could give one, Thais could give one, I could, would be great, but we really don't have an answer to that, to be honest with you. Maybe we gotta look for state funding. As you can see, the vote we just had, it was 1,200 votes to 600, not to put in a new school, because we can't do another $40 million hit. We just can't. So that being said, we gotta start looking for other ways to get money. And I would think, look going towards the state, federal government, and see if we can get bonds or something to assist is the way to go.
Okay. Talise?
Yes, I agree. It's a tough decision to make. We will be facing cuts again this year. You'll hear about it during town meeting, and you can watch the select board and the advisory committee meetings. The schools are looking to cut, I believe, about 4 positions again this year. So we are in a tough spot. Having said that, there are other departments suffering as well. DPW is down a whole employee. From what I understand, there's one person that works in the transfer station, and he's only on site 2 days a week because he needs another person there working with him. He's on the road the other 3 days. So again, it comes down to coming together as a community, really being honest about where we are from a fiscal perspective across all departments, and then making tough decisions. The school issue is not going away. I know that, the town voted against the school expansion, but that issue is not going away. You heard from Lisa, they're looking to apply for state funds because the enrollment is going to continue to grow in this town based on the projections that we have and based on new development that is happening, residential development. School-age children will be moving into this town. So, we need to be clear-eyed about the impending growth in the schools, the fact that we are currently out of space, and how do we make those tough decisions? And I think that, again, goes back to communication amongst our residents.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, these candidates and all the candidates that are running. Thank you. Thank you for all attending. We will answer the Kingsbury Pond question.
Yes, thank you.
Once this is over.
Okay.
We want to finish this format. Remember, early voting begins April 25th at Town Hall. Election day is May 6th at Freeman Kennedy.